It seems like just yesterday that the super trainer category was invented, and nowadays pretty much everyone has their version. But which one reigns supreme in 2025? Today we're comparing the Neo Vista 2 with the Hyperion Max 3. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Like I said, today we're comparing the Neo Vista 2 and the Hyperion Max 3, but if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review today, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, because I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while, but for whatever reason you haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, quick plug before I get into any details here. I am currently raising money for the Tokyo Marathon. In fact, by the time this video drops, I may have gotten notification that I've gotten in or not. Based on the bid process, though, I'm fairly confident I should get in because it works in a blind lottery system. And based on historical bids, I did bid higher and should be okay. As such, what I'm doing is trying to get ahead of that fundraising. I've committed $4,000, and so any of the revenue I generate through YouTube for the months of June, July, and August, I'm automatically committing towards those charities. And on top of that, any donations that I raise directly through the comments by utilizing the thanks button below will also go towards charity in general for the months of June, July, and August. On top of that, one of the things that I'm doing is utilizing the commission links or affiliate links that I have below in my description for both Wallaco and Fuel Goods. If you end up purchasing anything through either of the links below, then I will get a kickback, and I will donate those kickbacks again for the months of June, July, and August towards charity. So if you'd like to help me raise money for the Tokyo Marathon charity entry, please consider doing that. I sure appreciate any help. Now, moving on to some quick disclaimers and disclosures about these shoes are that I did receive them for free from their respective brands. That being said, I was not paid. I'm not given talk tracks, talking points. No one watches the video beforehand. I'm not obligated to actually include shoes in any specific content, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. Now, originally, the Super Trainer was designed for marathon training. It's kind of the shoe that you would use rather than your race day shoe that was going to take on the bulk miles, especially of like those long run marathon workouts where you're hitting marathon pace for, 5, 10, 15, whatever, however many miles you're gonna hit, right? And while I do think that's still the intended use of Super Trainers, I do feel like people are using them for a little bit of everything. But for the most part, that's how we're going to talk about them and evaluate them today. Now, from a price standpoint, both of these shoes come in at $200. It is steep. It used to be what super shoes cost, and nowadays it's what super trainers cost. And so, it is a shoe that has some premium technology in it. It has kind of the trickle down from their super shoe counterparts. But for the most part, if you want a max cushion super shoe or super trainer like these, you're going to be paying close to, or sometimes even a little bit over, $200. Now, from a specs perspective, the Vista 2 comes in at 9.2 ounces, which is 264 grams. And the Hyperion Max 3 comes in at 9.9 ounces, which is roughly 280 grams or so. Then from a stack height perspective, the Hyperion Max 3 comes in at 46 in the heel, 40 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. And the Neo Vista 2 comes in at 51 in the heel, 42 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. So both of them well above the World Athletics legal limit at 40mm. Now, from a fit perspective, they fit pretty different overall. The Neo Vista, it does fit long, and it's kind of interesting. I feel like the midfoot fits a little bit narrow due to kind of some of the arch support, but at the same time, the heel and like the toe box and everything else fits kind of wide. So it is very spacious, a very roomy overall fit, and it does fit long. In fact, I would highly recommend that you half size down in the Vista 2. I have heard some people say that they didn't have enough room in the toe box with the half size down. I think it would be worth it. Personally, for me, it fits similar to the Neo Zen, where I half size down and was much more comfortable in that. Moving over to the Hyperion Max 3, this fits true to size lengthwise, and then I would say that it fits pretty wide foot friendly overall. It is a little bit more snug in the midfoot area. I don't feel like that's strictly because of the width though, and we'll talk about that when we get to the upper, but I would say like the Hyperion Max 3 is at the very least wide foot friendly in my mind. Now, moving to the upper, talking about the Hyperion Max 3, it is a breathable mesh upper, and it's got kind of, it's really interesting. It's kind of got two pieces or two things here. So you have like this breathable mesh here in the toe box, a little bit in the midfoot area, and then underneath kind of these mesh panels, you have the knit portion of the upper where you kind of have this knit heel, but it is a structured heel. So you do have like a pretty structured heel counter. You can't really collapse that, even though it looks like maybe because of that pull tab, but there's actually pretty good structure there in the heel. And then it's like a very knit elastic tongue that is gusseted. It's like double gusseted in a couple of places there in the shoe. And so it almost fits like a knit upper, but then you get a more traditional structured fit throughout the shoe. Now I did find that this upper was a little bit warm, both because of the cushion there in the heel, but also the tongue, the knit tongue it's got some filling in it, and it feels a little bit overwhelming, and I'll be honest, it does put a little bit of pressure there on the top of the foot. Similarly, because it is kind of a knit fit in that midfoot area underneath these mesh panels, although I don't think it's narrow, it does feel very, very snug in that area. So, you know, I haven't overheated in these shoes necessarily, and I have taken them out on some long workouts here in the summer heat, and so they get the job done. It's not like my feet are like cooking by any means, but I will say that there are slightly more breathable options out there potentially, but you do get some really, really good midfoot lockdown. I didn't have any sliding around in the shoe, and the upper itself for the most part is comfortable. It just might feel like a little bit much kind of in that midfoot area, so just be aware of that. Moving to the Neo Vista 2, overall, I like the concept of the upper is what I'll say. So, you know, there isn't as much stretch as you would think in this like knit sock upper, but I like that it's fairly minimal. So it really is supposed to be more of a sock fit. You don't have a ton of like excess cushion. In fact, there's like no cushion in the upper. It's supposed to just kind of be glued to your foot. And most of the stretch and elasticity is going to be in the tongue and the heel, just so you can get the shoe on, right? Really like not a ton of stretch in the toe box or anything, and that's kind of my beef sometimes with knit sock style uppers, is that they have too much stretch, and then you're just like not locked down onto the midsole. And I felt like that was a little bit of the problem with the Neo Vista 1. Now, let me be clear, there is some slippage with the Neo Vista 2. You can get okay lockdown in the midfoot area, but the heel is pretty wide. Like the heel is pretty spacious, and so there is a little bit of sliding there sometimes as well, which can be a little bit frustrating, but the upper itself is very comfortable and it is very breathable. And for the most part, you know, I took it on some like tempo paces. I didn't feel like the shifting was so much that it was really, really crushing me, but I didn't take it on like a 20 miler. So I could see a situation where, you know, over time on a really long run, 2+ hours, where, you know, the upper just isn't giving you the lockdown you need, and that can get really annoying. But I do think that the upper is very comfortable. It is very sleek. I like that it doesn't have any excess stretch, so you're not necessarily like feeling like you're disjointed from the midsole, but it definitely is spacious, and I think half sizing down would solve a lot of the issues with the shoe. Moving to the midsoles, you have a nitrogen infused TPU up top and then a EVA layer on bottom for the Neo Vista 2. You also have a fiberglass plate that runs through the two layers to give it a little bit more structure, a little bit more rigidity, but you can see with a fiberglass plate, you can still bend it pretty good. You're not gonna snap the plate doing that. It's a lot more flexible, right? With the Hyperion Max 3, you have PIBA, that Hyperion or that DNA gold up top. So you have PIBA, you then have a plastic plate, which in my opinion is a little bit more rigid than a fiberglass plate. And then on the bottom, you have DNA Flash, which is that nitrogen infused EVA, that is a little bit firmer. So you have a pretty bouncy foam up top, then a rigid plate, and then a kind of firmer overall foam underfoot that does give a good amount of bounce. You know, between these two, from a stability perspective, I actually think the Hyperion Max 3 might be a little bit more stable. A lot of people are concerned about that medial cutout. I'll tell you, I didn't notice it. Like it's there, but like it didn't cause any overpronation or rolling in like a lot of people were worried about. And I think a large part of that is because of the firmer foam underfoot, as well as that, you know, pretty rigid plastic plate in between the layers. It does give you a little bit more stability and just kind of, you know, you're not going to collapse a ton. The other thing about Brooks is their PIBA is not super squishy compared to some other brands. It is a firmer formulation of PIBA. It's still very bouncy though. The Neo Vista, though, to me is super comfortable and super smooth. You almost don't notice that the plate is there, but you do get a little bit of pop, a little bit of snap. And I find that the Neo Vista is a much smoother underfoot ride, right? Neo Vista to me is very smooth, like it feels nice, very relaxing. You can kind of more easily hit paces as far as like in a more relaxed state. Hyperion Max is a lot more punchy, a lot bouncier off the ground, and to me is a lot more explosive, right? So between the two shoes, what's really interesting is that if I were to go out for a long run and maybe had some tempo paces, I might prefer the Neo Vista 2. If I was going out for a long run and had, you know, some more of like cut down, more aggressive paces, I think I might prefer the Hyperion Max 3, right? If I was going out for just an easy long run, Neo Vista 2, not even close. But I actually think that the Hyperion Max 3 can also take on like short track workouts, like short fast reps, which is not normally the case when looking at, you know, a super trainer. I feel like super trainers are more geared towards like those tempo long runs, not necessarily for short and fast workouts. I do feel like the Hyperion Max 3 though has enough pop and enough like return there to be more versatile across the board than the Neo Vista 2. So, you know, it's interesting. It's one of those weird situations where I like the sensation of the Neo Vista 2 underfoot more, but I do think that the Hyperion Max 3 is probably better overall for a variety of use cases. Now moving to the outsoles, Hyperion Max 3, you know, it should be that Sport Tack rubber. It did give me a little bit of issues when I, you know, running through some wet areas, it did give a little bit of slippage. And so maybe something to be slightly concerned about while like on a track, if you get wet or anything along those lines, or maybe surfaces that can get a little bit slicker. But like 90% of the time, it's totally fine. It gets the job done. The Neo Vista 2 uses that X10 rubber, which I find to be phenomenal, actively grips the road really, really well, and is holding up really well as well, and not getting a ton of wear and tear through there. So I like the X10 rubber a little bit more as far as outsoles go. But both of them, for the most part, get the job done. And, you know, I honestly don't feel like I have a ton to say about the outsoles on these two. Durability-wise, you know, we're looking good through about 30 miles on both shoes. Now, as far as my pick, it's hard. This is really hard. If you've watched my top shoes of 2025 so far, you know where I'm going. I am going Hyperion Max 3. It's a really good shoe. It is probably one of my favorite super trainers in a long while. It reminds me a lot of the initial or the original like SC trainer or super comp trainer from New Balance, which like if you liked that shoe, I really think you're gonna like this one. It's almost a blend of that and like the Hoka Cielo X1. And it gives like Hoka Cielo X1 vibes right there with the midsole a little bit. So really well executed, really good super trainer. Now, I will say if you liked the Hyperion Max 1 and 2, it's a completely different shoe. Like, it's not like not even close. So don't use that as your bearing, but as a super trainer, really awesome overall shoe. I love the Neo Vista 2 though. Like I absolutely love this shoe. This is probably as close as any debate has been for me when it comes to kind of the super trainer category, or any category, frankly, for that matter. 1A, 1B, I just think that Hyperion Max 3 is a little bit more versatile overall, can handle a little bit more. But I do like the sensation underfoot of the Neo Vista 2 more overall. So anyway, just some final thoughts. Super trainer category is really, really interesting. Traditionally, for me, if I'm being honest, I have not loved the super trainer category. I just feel like a lot of the time they end up too bulky, they end up too heavy, they end up too rigid. And both of these brands have done an excellent job of making a shoe that, despite the weight of the shoes, are a lot of fun to run in and very capable of going the distance and hitting fast paces on those longer overall efforts. So really cool to see that with these two brands. Transparently, these are also the only two super trainers, I believe, that I have used this year. I think that is the case. And so, you know, who knows? Maybe some more come out this year and absolutely destroy these two, but I've genuinely enjoyed them. They hold up to any other shoes on the market currently. You know, I think in that super trainer category, the only shoe I maybe take over them right now would be the Super Blast, which the Super Blast is phenomenal. So anyway, if you watched this far, I really appreciate you. Please take a sec. Let me know in the comments below what you enjoyed about today's comparison, if there's other comparisons you'd like to see, or what I could be doing better to make these more entertaining, educational, whatever it may be for each and every one of you. Also, again, if you'd like to support my journey to Tokyo to run the Tokyo Marathon in 2026, please consider donating through the comments or using any of the affiliate links below. And lastly, we'll wrap up with a question, which is, what is your favorite all-time super trainer? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.